Thanks to all of you for coming out today. I appreciate you being here. I know you probably have 1,000 other things you could do. So I thought what I would do is just maybe have a conversation with you about kind of where we are, a few thoughts about how we got here, where we're going, and some thoughts about how we're going to have to change in order to be able to go to our future opportunity. So in terms of where we are, it is an absolutely extraordinary time. I've never seen such a dynamic set of national, global, political, and geopolitical issues as we have today. On a geopolitical front, we should all keep in the back of our minds that we're living in an extraordinary time with an extraordinary number of hot spots around the globe, from North Korea and South Korea to Iran and Israel to now even China and Japan on territorial issues. There are a number of spots out there that could be very explosive, and we certainly all need to pray and hope that none of them do explode, because they would be extraordinarily damaging to the people involved as well as to the global environment. So it's treacherous out there from that point of view. And then from an economic point of view, it's a difficult time as well. If you think about the Eurozone, which you've read a lot about, it's pretty much a mess, is probably the best technical term. They have really been overspending and overborrowing for 50 or 60 years. And in many of the countries' cases, they've simply gone broke. And so you read about countries like Greece and Spain and Italy and others, and you wonder what's going on. And the bottom line is they've just been spending way more than they have been producing, and it's finally caught up with them. And then you read about, just this past weekend, a little small island called Cyprus that got everything stirred up all again. And to show you how contagious this entire matter is out there, they tell me that the annual GDP of Cyprus is about the same as 1/2 of Apple's quarterly earnings. So it's a very small little place. But it has set off a huge amount of discussions around the economic challenges that whole Eurozone has. So we got to hope that they kind of work their way through it. In order to do so, they're going to have to make a lot of changes, mostly around being more frugal, more fiscally responsible. And frankly, the employees over there are going to have to learn that it's probably not going to be realistic to work for 30 hours a week and retire when you're 50 years old. That's probably just not going to work going forward, but that's what they're accustomed to. So the Eurozone has real issues for those folks, but it also has real issues for us, because it's about 1/3 of our export in terms of exporting partnerships. And so if the Eurozone has major economic upheavals, then it creates a real problem for us. And it has been a spillover problem for us over the last several years. Of course, in the United States, as you well know, we've been going through an extraordinarily difficult economic period for the last 5 years. We now call it the Great Recession. It's been a huge economic impact across every sector of the economy, on the consuming side, on the corporate side, and certainly in the governmental space. It's interesting to think about what caused that. And I would say to you that in the short run, what caused that is we really had a lot of excesses in this country, very much like in Europe. We went through a period in the 90s and the 2000s when everything was perfect. Everybody had a job that wanted one. Everybody had a house that wanted one. Houses were going up 15 or 20% a year, and everybody thought it would never end. And like all bubbles, they ultimately will burst, and that one did burst, and it has created a huge set of ripple effects throughout the entire economy. A lot of the blame has been placed on the banks, and as you might imagine, I'm a bit defensive about that. But really, most of the banks, like around Main Street, BB&T and many other really fine institutions, really practically didn't have anything to do with that. It really was what we now call the shadow banking system that really created most of the problem. Most people don't realize this, but when I started in banking in 1972, the banks in this country made 80% of all the loans made, 80%. Just before we headed into this crisis, the banks in this country made 30%. So about 50% of the loans that were made by the banks left the banking system, went out into the shadow banking system that had no regulation and a lot of other economic variations. And frankly, it just became a really big mess. Now, in fairness, a lot of the Wall Street banks did have culpability in this because they were involved in developing the products and selling the products around the globe. So it's been a big challenge. All of us, I think, though, at the end of the day, rather than spending much time on casting blame or trying to assign responsibility, I think it's safe to say that all of us in this country got a little bit accustomed to living beyond our means, and so we're going through a period of correction. In the short term, where we are right now is we are out of the recession, which is very good. The economy is teetering on growth and recession. The fourth quarter, and you have the greatest economists right here in this area of anywhere in the States, maybe the Southeast. But fourth quarter was kind of -1, +1. But when people are talking about that technicality, I say, look, whether it's -0.1 or +0.1 doesn't matter. It's real slow. And so as we head through this year, I think we will see some pickup in economic activity, but it's still going to be very slow. Coming out of an economic correction as deep as we had, we should be growing 5 or 6% at this time, and yet we're struggling to get up to maybe 1.5 or 2%. Why is that? Well, when you talk to business people, what you will find is that there's a great deal of hesitation to invest. There's a great deal of uncertainty. There's been so much that has changed during this last several years. The business people are really, frankly, very scared about making big investments for the future. That's why you're not seeing a lot of big plant and equipment investment. That's why you're not seeing employment grow. That's why you're seeing unemployment hang up there at 7.7 to 8%. And the reason they're concerned is because government is changing the rules really fast. And so they worry about taxes, which are very unpredictable and being talked about and in many cases changed already. They worry about regulation. They really worry about insurance, particularly when you talk to small business people. They will tell you they just do not know what their insurance costs are going to be. And interestingly, if you think about growing the economy, this Obamacare bill basically says that if you're under 50 employees, it kind of doesn't affect you. And so guess what? Any employer that's in the just under 45 or 50 level, he's saying, I'm definitely not getting up to 50, which is terrible, of course. But that's some of the kind of effects that's going on in the economy today. So, what's going to be required to change that, and what's kind of the root cause of this problem? Why are we getting all of this government intervention, and why are we missing out on the opportunity that would be there if we did not have as much? Well, we've really been going down, I think, a wrong path for a pretty long time. We've really kind of lost our way. And if you think about the basis on which this country was founded, it was founded on a pursuit of freedom, a pursuit of economic opportunity. Brave men and women several hundred years ago left the tyranny of big government bureaucracy, came across the seas to come here in order to have a fresh start, in order to create a bond, in order to create a country that would be a country of freedom, a freedom of opportunity, a freedom of pursuit of happiness, freedom for people to work as hard as they wanted to work and save and buy the things they wanted for themselves and their family and work hard and send their kids to college so their kids could maybe have a little better life than they had. And that worked really well, interestingly, for several hundred years. Now, for the last several decades, we've been going down an entirely different path. We've been going down the very same path that Europe has been on for many more years than that. And that path is a path of large government control, large government spending, and a general ideology that government knows more about how to live your life than you know for yourself. I personally think that is very, very dangerous. When you throw out the baby with the bathwater in any situation, you're really taking a lot of risk, and that's what we are attempting to do now. And the fundamental reason is this. The people that came to this country, and the reason this country did so well for so many decades, is because people were relatively unrestrained. People had the opportunity to work hard and pursue their goals and achieve their dreams and their goals and all the opportunities that they were willing to work for. And as I said, that worked very, very well. Now we're into a period where there's much tighter government regulation in every aspect of life. And that is inhibiting that spirit of growth, that spirit of opportunity. You know, what happens in life is that people want to be happy. People want to achieve a sense of self-esteem, a sense of pride in how they live their lives. And when you begin to take that away, and especially when you begin to undergird that with a really big, high safety net, then people can easily drift into not being motivated to excel, but being willing to accept the safety net. Today, we already have way too many people that are taking advantage of the safety net. Now, let me be clear. I'm not talking about the men and women, particularly elderly, that need help. I'm not talking about people that are handicapped and need help. I'm not talking to people that, that have been out of job and tried as hard as they can to get a job and can't get a job. I'm talking about people that just fundamentally would rather take a free check from the government and work. We cannot afford as a country to keep doing that. If we do, I will say to our young folks in the room, 20, 30 years, maybe, many people say a much shorter time than that, you're not going to like the environment that you're going to see. Because you're going to see a case where as hard as you work, 80 or 90% of your income will be taxed away, and you'll have so many regulations about how you live and how you work that you would not like it a bit. I get really kind of energized about that, to be honest with you, because and I think I'm a perfect example of the great American dream. I grew up on a tobacco farm in eastern North Carolina. When I was 13 years old, I was still living in a house with no running water, with no insulation. When it was super cold, no bathrooms. I know what it's like in January to go outside and use an outhouse. I know what poor is. And yet I stand here now as the CEO of the ninth largest U.S. bank in the country. That's the great American dream. That's what I want to have for all of you. That's what I want to have for all Americans. And that's what I think we need to try to pursue. So we have this ideological, dysfunctional leadership in Washington. It is not about Democrats and Republicans. People easily want to jump on that. Not true. We've had some great Republican presidents in the last 40, 50 years. We've had some great Democratic presidents. But what we have now is a group on both sides of the aisle that are so ideologically entrenched in their position that they cannot agree on anything. And that is handicapping the economy and creating an environment where we cannot go forward. So what do we do about that? So is it all doom and gloom? Is it all negative? I mean, I'm thinking some of the students in here might be saying now, Dean, that this is not the kind of speech I wanted to hear. This is not very encouraging. But I think it's important to level set and to see what the real issues are. Being realistic about the world is an important value. But the truth is the opportunity is phenomenal. It is absolutely outstanding. We are so poised for an economic boom like we have never seen. It's just hard to believe. And the reason is because we have now gone through 5+ years where businesses have not invested in equipment, in software. They've not been adding employees, not been building big plants, not been adding new product lines. They've been holding back because of all of this uncertainty, but they need to invest. They want to hire more employees. They are ready to make a difference in terms of growing this economy. I mean, we could easily be growing 6 to 10% very quickly if we had the kind of leadership in Washington that we need to have. And another perspective I want, especially our young folks, to have. We live in an absolutely great country. I mean, you cannot find another place in the world that is nearly as good as the United States of America to live in. You know why? If you kind of back away and look at this great land of ours, it's like if you were flying out up at 50,000 feet and look down. It's a really attractive piece of land. Think about it. It's got rivers and lakes. It's got oceans. It's got great climate change. It's got huge natural resources, which we choose not to use, but they're there if we would just be willing to use them. We have millions of people who would like to immigrate into this country and work and pay taxes and help support the schools. If you were in a country like Japan, where you're a small little island, you're landlocked, your aging population, there's nobody coming in, it'd be hard to figure that out. That's not our dilemma. We have all the resources. We have all the opportunity. We just need to take advantage of it. So what is going to be required for us to move forward and take advantage of this great opportunity that we have? Well, it's about leadership. It's about leadership, not dysfunctional leadership. By the way, some people say we don't have any leaders in Washington. Well, we do. We have strong leaders. It's just that some are going this way and some are going this way and none of them are going together. That's dysfunctional leadership. That's not effective. So we need effective leadership. in Washington. What is effective leadership? So at BB&T, as was mentioned, Tim Davis heads our human resources area, and that includes our BB&T University. We've developed over the years a very simple leadership model. And frankly, it's the best model that I've seen anywhere, and I've been traveling for a long time looking for any that are better. It's a simple model that says basically this. If you're going to change results in any aspect of life, you have to change the behaviors of those people that are trying to get the results. And if you're going to change the behaviors of people, then you have to change their beliefs, because people behave in a manner that's consistent with their beliefs. And so what we do at BB&T is we don't sell more loans, get more deposits. That's not helpful. In fact, it's counterproductive. And the reason is because most people come in every day trying to do the best they can do. And so if you just beat on them, you create anxiety and fear, and they're less productive. If you're going to change their results, you have to change their behaviors, and that requires good educational programs, training programs, skill-based training programs to change the actual behaviors, but you're never going to get sustained behavioral change until you really align the beliefs that cause those behaviors. Because remember, again, people behave in a manner that's consistent with their beliefs. And the most overarching aspect of beliefs in life, and certainly in business, is all about values. So the most important thing that's going to influence your life, in business or out of business, I would suggest to you, is your values. And so I want to talk to you just a minute or two about fundamental values. And some people would use different words and different concepts, but it would, in most places you'd find about 95% agreement on this. So at BB&T we have 10 core values, and we frame it in 4 areas. And so the first area is character. So what we believe is if you don't have fundamentally good character, you're not going to be able to be ultimately successful and happy. And character is about honesty and integrity. Honesty is the foundational value, and that is because without honesty there could be no trust. Without trust there could be no relationships, and without relationships there could be no meaningful societal or organizational development. I mean, think about it. If people don't trust each other, they're not going to work together, and they're not going to be able to accomplish anything. And integrity is about living consistently your values. So, for example, you can't say, well, okay, I understand honesty is important, so I'll be honest Monday through Friday. I'll just take off on the weekends. That doesn't work very well. You have to be consistent into application and adherence to your values to be a person of high integrity. But if you have high character, if you have high character based on honesty and integrity, then you're likely to be a person who will exercise good judgment. Now, judgment, the decisions we make, is really, really important. But it's important to know how you exercise good judgment. So our values around judgment are reasoning, independent thinking, and reality. And so we believe that you should always start in making decisions with reality. This is certainly a challenge early on. I know when our associates come out of college and join the company, I spend a lot of time helping them understand that it's really important when you start making decisions to deal with the facts. Not what you wish would be true, not what you hope is true, but what really is true. Because it's only when you start with the fundamental facts that you're going to be able to ultimately make a good decision. But then you have to use your brain. You have to reason. You have to use your cognitive ability to make decisions. And the third one is independent thinking. You have to be a person that is courageous enough to make your own decisions. Sounds simple enough, except this. I bet if you went right out here on the street and you lined up 100 people and asked them about an important issue of life, about 95% of those people would give you an answer, but it would not be an answer that they looked up the facts on, that they thought through carefully, or that they independently concluded. You know what it would be? It would be what somebody else told them, what they read in the paper, what they heard on TV. People rarely have the focus on the responsibility of making good decisions for themselves. So again, I especially say to our young folks, when you're out in life very soon, make your decisions for yourself. Have the courage to be independent enough to own your responsibility, to make your decisions. But be sure you use your brain power to look at the facts and make really good decisions. So if you exercise good judgment in life, it is not guaranteed, but it is likely that you will be successful. So in terms of success, we think about three values, and that is individual productivity, teamwork and mutual support, and a sense of justice. So my suggestion to our associates when I speak with them is, look, when you go out and get your first job, the first thing you ought to do, regardless of whether it's the ideal job you picked or not, it is your job, it is your responsibility. Your first responsibility is to independently for yourself do all you can do. Not all you have to do, but all you can do. Unleash that discretionary effort. If the job says you have to work 8 hours, but there's productive work needs to be done, work 9 hours. If they tell you to do 3 things and the fourth is obvious, do the fourth thing. Be the first one to go out there and individually produce all you can produce for the cause of the organization. But then secondly, immediately turn your attention to working with the team. Because if you don't help the team succeed, then the team will not be able to be as successful, and you will therefore not be able to be as successful. And look, when you get into a management responsibility, here's a little tidbit. Do not go in. It's important to go in and produce all you can produce. It is not important to go in and brag about it. It's very important for you to go in as a leader and to let others get the credit. You be the first one to applaud your teammates and let them get the credit, even if it's something you did, and you'll generate trusting relationships, you'll generate fellowship, and you'll be successful. And then it's important in success to recognize this concept of justice. And justice is about understanding that those that produce the most should justly earn the most. Now, that's not exactly what they believe in Europe, but that's what we fundamentally believe in this country. That's the free enterprise concept. If you work hard, you produce more, you should earn more. The egalitarian approach where, you line up all 10 people in a department and all 10, all 9 work one way and the 10th works twice as hard and produces twice as much and you pay everybody the same, that's not a concept of causing people to be highly motivated and moving ahead. But we believe that if you exercise those principles, those values, that you will likely be successful, especially in nominal terms. But I think the real question, at least to me personally, is not whether you're successful or not. But what I've learned now over my life is that just being successful is not the bogey. What you're really looking for in life is a sense of happiness. You're really looking for fulfillment. You're looking for a sense of achievement. In our value system, we talk about that in terms of self-esteem and pride. You want to be able to live your life, do your work, go through school, and at the end of the day, you want to have a sense of strong, positive self-esteem. You want to feel good about yourself. But look, here's the trick. Nobody can give you self-esteem. Your parents can't give you self-esteem. The dean can't give you self-esteem. Nobody can give you self-esteem. If somebody else could give you self-esteem, they wouldn't call it self-esteem. They call it we-esteem or they-esteem or some other kind of esteem. It's self-esteem because that's your recognition that you have done your best and you have a right to feel good about yourself for that. And when you do that, then you have a right to feel justly proud of how you have lived your life and the contributions that you have made. So this notion of leading based on beliefs and values is a really, really powerful concept. And so I hope as you go forward, particularly our students, as you leave school, you go out into your first job, I hope you'll really think about those fundamental values. And if it's not exactly your values, fine. Independent thinking, you think it through. You sort through the values that you've heard from people like me, your parents and others. You decide on what values are important to you, but be aware of this. Whatever values you decide that you deeply believe in, they will directly and almost totally influence your results in life. So be careful about the values that you choose. Be careful about the people that you're around. Be careful about the people that you let influence you, because that's how values are formed. And when those values are formed and they get deeply embedded into your subconscious, then you will be acting according to that and you will get the results of those actions.